Hello again and welcome to Module 2, where we'll be looking at building or refreshing organisational values. So let's think about engaging stakeholders. Re-emphasising a point from our first module, many of the people in the survey made the point that actually the journey and the conversation is as important as the word or the value. Engaging people in that conversation, helping them to make sense of it and bring it to life, and giving them a sense of involvement in the consultation process actually helps to produce engagement. Even if a set of values are really powerful, if people are simply briefed them rather than feeling they've had some sense of ownership, it won't be as effective as it could be. One of the key questions we looked at was whether in bringing your values about or refreshing them, it should be a top-down or a bottom-up process. To some degree or other, organisations ensured that they involved everybody in the organisation and their stakeholders. But two key things to keep in mind. Ultimately, it is the directors who have the responsibility for the overall direction and the purpose of the organisation, and also they're the guardians of the ethos and the culture. But in fact, in reality, bringing things to life at the sharp end, that will come from staff at all levels and the volunteers and other stakeholders. So think about wherever you might start on the continuum. Ensure that there are lots of opportunities for staff to discuss and to make sense of these values. And as I said, it can be weighted towards top-down or it can be weighted towards bottom-up. For example, in our survey, Fresh Horizons, a small charity, the MD there went out and spoke in small groups and listened to all his staff. And as a result of that, he came back and developed the 4 words that encapsulate their value set. Whereas in Jewish Care, who a few years back were struggling both with internal morale and also financially, they took this opportunity to really re-energise the organisation. The directors went away for 2 days on an away day, thought really hard about their long-term purpose and the strategic plan and what sort of culture and what sort of value set they needed in order to make that happen. And whereas this was initiated at the top and held at the top, they put an enormous amount of energy into developing their leaders, building into their leadership programs, building it into training, induction and staff events. So they made sure it was a consultative and inclusive process. The language we use with values is really important. There's a powerful and well-known expression that if you want to change culture, you need to change the nature of conversations. So the language, the words, whether that be for external or internal audience, are really important. Here's a few things from a checklist that it might be worth running against your own set in your own organisation. Are they memorable? Are they simple? It's very often said that people will march for a sentence, but they won't march for a paragraph because it's too long to remember. Are they inspiring and challenging? These very often need to be aspirational to give that challenge, but they also need to be something that people do feel is achievable. A good example of this was an organisation who had courage as one of their values. One of the ways that played out is that they had the courage to be one of the first charities to set up a performance-related contract with one of their partner organisations, payment by results. Are they transferable? Is it something that people at all levels can see how that can actually impact on what they're doing day by day in order to bring it to life? And perhaps finally, is there a strapline, or is there one value that absolutely encapsulates the whole thing for the organisation? I think a really good example of this comes from Cats Protection, who have 4 values, but one of them, we care about cats, actually summarises both their purpose and the sort of behaviours they want to put into practice to underpin that. So looking at the process of creating refreshing values, remember that it takes time. People need to live with these, they need to soak them up, they need to think about them. And if the process is iterative, that will help in that, and it will also help in the sense of ownership. Think about how the process could be innovative. Catch 22, for example, they gave each manager a toolkit under the heading of a internal branding, We Are, and allowed people to play around with some innovative and creative mechanisms to get their teams involved in thinking about and expressing what the values could be. And whereas project teams and external advisors can help facilitate this and can add a lot of value here, it must always be owned by leaders and the senior leaders in the organisation, which is not a tick box. So that brings us to the end of module 2. Again, I've got an exercise you might like to try. So think about getting a group of your colleagues together and ask them to visualise the organisation and how it would look and how it would feel if it were living its values as they would like to see it. Get them to draw this, because this draws on a different area of the brain, if you like. This draws on a different way of people seeing things. And you can do this whether or not values currently exist. Ask people to explain their drawings and use a discussion to bring out key themes and commonalities, as well as highlight areas for further dialogue. Think about how far it mirrors reality. This exercise can help create, refine, get a shared understanding and gain buy-in and alignment, particularly at team level. So I look forward to talking with you again when we come to module 3, where we'll be looking at the practical application of values.